Welcome back, and thank you all for staying with NTV at 1 with me, Sandra Twinogdio. Now, recently, the Uganda Meteorological Authority in January reported that there would be usually higher levels of rainfall than usual. The matter, of course, comes as more and more smallholder farmers turn to fruit farming, with the harvest starting to show greater benefits. There are increased sales of fruits on the roadsides, as you may have probably noticed, and in many markets. So today we pick the thoughts of Dr. Agnes Atim Apea, a founder of the Hope Development Initiative Cooperative Society, which promotes rice-growing industry for female farmers in several parts of Uganda. Welcome to NTV at 1 today.
Thank you very much.
Well, just to pick your thoughts, do you think there's an increase of the number of people on the street selling fruits? Would you say
yes,
it's quite a high?
Yes, I think so, especially when you go across the country and in the major towns. Yes, there's a very big influx of fruit selling.
Would you attribute it to the higher rainfall that we're seeing in the southern part of the country, or is it just a season?
I think rain could explain partly the reason of the increase in production, but the most important thing about farmers is that they respond to the available market and the price of a particular commodity. So yes, it could be about rain, but it could also be about the price and the market. Yeah. And
for a person that has worked on several occasions with farmers, what is your experience like, and what are some of the main issues that the smallholder farmers face on a day-to-day basis?
My experience with farmers is that they're very smart. They know their stuff, yes, and they've been in it for quite some time. And what I know about farmers is that they're very sensitive, as I told you earlier, that whenever there's a crop that comes with better price and better market, they will jump into it. The other thing about farmers is that they're homogeneous. There are categories of them, and they're indigenous. You know, they are people who have grown up and seen their great-grandparents growing a particular crop, and they will always grow it. And so my experience with farmers is that they're very smart, and they've really got it all to do whatever they want to do, so long as they know they'll benefit from that particular crop. Yeah.
And the issues that they face on a day-to-day basis?
I think the main issue about farmers is that as their leader, I have been a farmer leader for quite some time. Smallholder farmers don't feel their existence in the space of agriculture. The planning and the budgeting is done by the scholars and the experts. But I wish farmers were really at the center of all this planning. They could have maybe advised us a bit more. The other thing that I see with the farmer is that we produce, but at the end of it, there's no market. The market is, I would say, it's decided by the middlemen and by the people who would want to get more profit on. So the issue of pricing, the issue of market, and the issue of funding is another big problem. You've got farmers who would have invested as much as they want in agriculture, but they lack the funding. Now, the available funding mechanisms are more conventional in nature, which is Commercial Bank, UDB, of recent is SCF in Bank of Uganda. But I think the farmers would have, the funding or the financing mechanism in the country would have helped the farmers more if it was farmer or agriculture targeted. For example, studies have shown, and I think as a country we've also seen targeted banks, like for example agricultural bank or a cooperative bank, or innovations like UDC, Uganda Development Government, coming in to partner with the farmer and help them out through the financing mechanism. So financing, then the other aspect of inputs. We've seen a growth in input supplies and production and businesses in different sectors of inputs. But the farmers are really not the key players in there. They sit and wait for what is in the market. And so the inputs that are available to the farmers, they don't have any choice but to pick what is there. And so I think the issue of inputs is also quite a big challenge for farmers, and mechanization. For example, in the north, our land average holding is a bit high, And we still use the rudimentary method of farming, the hoe, the panga, and all that kind of stuff. So mechanization is quite a big challenge that farmers are grappling with. They would have loved to produce more for a bigger market and also for a better price, but they lack the tools and the mechanism to mechanize and produce in bulk and commercialize their agriculture. So those and many more issues really affect the farmers.
The farmers.
Yeah.
Well, what are some of the reforms? You seem to tackle some of them, but what are some of the reforms that you think should be done to ensure that all these issues that you bring forth can be dealt with?
I think the first reform that the agriculture sector got to look at is putting a farmer at the center of the planning and looking at the farmer as a partner, but not a beneficiary. I think for long as farmers, we are taken to be people who do not know what we're doing, and they plan for us, they give us what is there. But if we are taken as partners, we would really sit on the table and discuss. So for me, the first reform, have the farmer at the center of the planning, at the center of the investment, at the center of planning. The second thing, reform that would really help pull a farmer from where they are to a commercial level is basically looking at the value chain development approach, which I really have to thank His Excellency the President, who developed a framework recently. He's calling it real economy. And he has identified 9 priority crops that if the reforms could focus on those crops, and the way he has put it is looking at right from the production up to the market. For example, in the north, we grow a lot of cassava. But for years, there's nothing happening in the cassava sector. It is those kind of reforms that we want to see the cassava from the garden up to when it is being used as ethanol for cooking, for example. Or
so it shouldn't just come from
it shouldn't
from
just
the
be
garden
production.
to the stomach.
Exactly, because for long investment has been about cassava cuttings. If you ask how many cassava cuttings have been distributed, you'll be amazed. But nothing has not been in place to pull it from now the cassava cuttings to, for example, Panado, for example, ethanol for cooking, and all the other aspects that cassava could produce. So value chain development reform is what this country needs yesterday, not even today. Then the other aspect is the market. How do we leverage on the East African community, on the African trade area, agreements that has been signed? I think the reform that we need in agriculture or in farming is moving away from production to leveraging the byproducts, the processed goods, leveraging the regional markets and all these international markets.
All right.
So those are kind of the things that I would love to see really happening in agriculture to move our farmers from where they are to another level.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Agnes Atim Apea, for sharing with us your thoughts on the different reforms and how the smallholder farmers can be helped.
Thank you.
Well, moving on, NRM has been advised to go back to the drawing board to strategize a way of winning back Masindi. In the just concluded parliamentary elections, the NRM lost the complete control it had over Masindi district, which has now fallen to the opposition and the independent candidates. Well, out of the 4 parliamentary slots from Masindi, the NRM managed to win only 1